Today we're going to talk about the next steps on the For the People Act now that Republicans blocked debate on the bill, as well as the two-track infrastructure proposals making their way through Congress. And I interview a member of the Pennsylvania State House, Brian Sims, about his viral moment where Republicans cut his mic, along with the possibility of an Arizona-style audit in PA. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen, and you're listening to No Lie. We spoke last time about the fact that Joe Manchin came out in support of a number of provisions in S1, the For the People Act, and that he would vote to move forward with debate on the bill. And we also spoke about how this would probably be moot anyway because, thanks to the filibuster, it would require 10 Republicans to also vote to open debate. And not only weren't there 10 Republicans, there wasn't even one Republican. And so S1 wasn't able to move forward. But here's why I think that this doesn't mean it's the end of the line for S1. The fact is that we were never gonna get 60 votes on that bill at any point, and the filibuster was gonna remain intact until at least Republicans got caught abusing it, because Joe Manchin is dead set on giving Republicans the opportunity to prove him right when he says that the Senate can still function with the filibuster in place. Now, we all know that the Senate can't function. We all know that Republicans aren't interested in the Senate functioning, but Manchin threw down that marker, and so of course he's not going to change his position for no reason. So in effect, we needed Republicans to prove Manchin wrong. We needed them to broadcast that, in fact, they're not interested in bipartisanship because, in my opinion, that's going to serve as the necessary pretext for Manchin to change his position. And I hope I'm right. I hope that Manchin's able to say, well, I tried. I gave them every opportunity. My reluctance to reform the filibuster or create a carve-out on voting rights was predicated on Republicans meeting me halfway. They didn't, so I had to take action. I hope that's what happens. And frankly, I have no choice but to hope that, because we've got a 50-50 majority and we need every senator on board, including Manchin. And as shitty as it is, the fact is that we're not going to get him to change his mind by screaming at him or lobbing threats at him. If anything, that's going to help the guy in West Virginia. So the option that we're left with, the only option, is then saying to him, look, you laid down that marker for Republicans, you gave them every opportunity, you got caught trying, so now, knowing that they're not interested in bipartisanship, and knowing that we need to pass voting rights legislation, and knowing that you've exhausted every other avenue, let's figure out what we're going to do about the filibuster so that we can pass some legislation that's not only common sense, not only supported by you already, but desperately needed ahead of 2022. Is it ideal? Of course not. But for better or for worse, we have a razor-thin majority. So if the process has to play out that way to eventually get to where we need to go, then we've got no choice but to let it. Now, another piece of news is that we're now looking at a two-track infrastructure proposal. We've got the bipartisan infrastructure package that focuses on hard infrastructure, and then a Democratic proposal that would pass through reconciliation, presumably only with Democrats, that focuses on everything else, what's being called human infrastructure, meaning the care economy, education, environment, stuff like that. Now, so that we're clear, the bipartisan bill is not enough. A bill that doesn't address climate change now in 2021 isn't enough. A bill that doesn't provide care for children and the elderly so that people can be freed up to go get jobs and stimulate the economy, which should be a no-brainer, isn't enough. And so it was understood that these two bills, the bipartisan infrastructure package and the budget resolution, would advance in tandem. In fact, Democrats had been saying this from the very beginning. But still, just to reiterate, after the bipartisan agreement was reached, Pelosi came out and said this.
In fact, I use the word ain't. There ain't going to be an infrastructure bill unless we have the reconciliation bill passed by the United States Senate.
And that sentiment was echoed by Biden.
President, you said you want both of these measures to come to you in tandem. Did you receive any assurances that that will happen? And how do you anticipate, what will you do?
I control that. If they don't come, I'm not signing. Real simple. So what I expect that in the coming months this summer, before the fiscal year is over, that we will have voted on this bill, as well, the infrastructure bill, as well as voted on the budget resolution. And that's when but if only one comes to me, I'm not, if this is the only thing that comes to me, I'm not signing it. It's in tandem.
Which is good, because remember, Democrats are in the majority and could pass all of this through reconciliation anyway. So the fact that Republicans are being involved in this bill at all means that they're just getting free credit for legislation that they'll use to then go get reelected back in their states and districts. Like, see that road, that bridge, that broadband, that clean water? They'll be able to take credit for all of that. They were given that gift as the minority party. And yet, instead of taking it, now, after hearing Democratic leadership reiterate that the two measures would advance together, Republicans are clutching their pearls and pretending that they had no clue that one bill was contingent on the other. And now the Republicans are threatening to bail on even their bipartisan measure, meaning that because we apparently needed bipartisanship for, the sake of bipartisanship, somehow, even in the majority, Democrats are still allowing themselves to get steamrolled by Republicans who, just so we're clear, are in the minority. And look, I understand that Biden and Manchin and Sinema want bipartisanship, but the fact is that this has already gone on for too long. Like, one, we've wasted precious time, and two, we're seeing now that Republicans are realizing that a plan might actually pass, and so they needed to cook up some bullshit excuse to back out, thereby proving that the whole point was to waste time. Like, I've talked about how rare it is to have unified control of government. It's been a decade since it last happened. This is a precious slice of time that we're in right now. Everything in the American Jobs Plan and the American Families Plan should and could pass through reconciliation. This entire package is feasible with a simple majority, which we have. And yet somehow Republicans are still dictating the terms. So look, on the off chance that those Republicans in the bipartisan group of senators were negotiating in good faith, knowing that Democrats could also get their soft infrastructure priorities passed through reconciliation, that shouldn't stop them from passing this bill because they always knew Democrats could pass a reconciliation bill. It's not a secret. We're in the majority. Enough with the performative outrage. But if the bipartisan bill falls apart because the performative outrage was just too good to pass up, then Manchin and Sinema and the rest of the party, all the way up to Joe Biden, should go at it alone because people do not care about process, they care about results. No one is going to qualify their support of better roads and expanded broadband and EV charging stations and education investments and childcare depending on how bipartisan the bill was. So let's get it done, because if it's a choice between a transformational agenda or trying to get a party whose entire governing philosophy revolves around breaking government to somehow help make government work, I think the answer here is obvious. Now, in the meantime, we clearly need to expand our Senate majority so that Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema and whatever other Democrats are so desperate to hand over every ounce of leverage we have to Republicans don't get to dictate the rules anymore. So donate to the Don't Be a Mitch Fund, and let's flip Senate seats in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Florida, Ohio, and Iowa, and keep our seats in Georgia and Arizona. The link, as always, is in the post description. To listen to my interview with Pennsylvania's Brian Sims about his viral moment where Republicans cut his mic, along with the possibility of an Arizona-style audit in PA, and his run for Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, check out the interviews playlist on my YouTube channel.